everyone, welcome back to Taehyung fans. Today we're not talking about a performance, a headline, or a big announcement. We're talking about a quiet moment that somehow says everything. A simple Christmas detail, a thoughtful gesture, and a question that has stayed in many fans' minds ever since. What does this tell us about who Taehyung really is when no one is watching? As we look closer, this moment begins to feel less like a seasonal story and more like a glimpse into his heart, and maybe even a hint of the future you never expected to imagine. There's a certain quiet way Taehyung gives. Not rushed, not careless, and never empty. It's the kind of giving that feels deliberate, almost intimate. This time, it wasn't about a stage, a camera, or a spotlight. It was something far smaller, yet somehow heavier in meaning. A Christmas gift. Actually, many of them. What made people stop wasn't the size or the season. It was the detail that came afterward. The fact that Taehyung didn't simply approve a gift choice. He personally chose them himself. That one detail changed the entire story. Because choosing a gift means imagining someone else's happiness. It means pausing, thinking, asking yourself what might bring warmth, comfort, or excitement to another person. And Taehyung didn't stop at one. He picked more. And then more again. That alone tells you something important. Most people with his schedule would delegate. Most would let someone else decide. But Taehyung didn't treat this like a task. He treated it like a moment. A moment worth attention. That's why fans didn't react with shock. They reacted with emotion. Because suddenly, this wasn't about Christmas anymore. It became about character. The kind of person who doesn't just give because it's expected, but because he genuinely wants to. And naturally, a question began to form, quietly, gently. What would Taehyung be like as a parent? If he already puts this much care into choosing gifts now? Would he stop himself if he had children? Or would he walk through aisles slowly? Picking things up, putting them back down, imagining small hands holding them? Would he think? Maybe one more, just in case. Because it feels like he would. Taehyung has always been someone who feels deeply. You see it in his music. The pauses, the breath between notes, the emotion that lingers longer than expected. You see it in his art. How he notices beauty in things others pass by. And now, you see it here. In the way he gives. This wasn't a flashy gift. It wasn't meant to impress. It felt warm. Soft. Almost childlike, like something chosen with a smile already in mind. And that's why people couldn't help but imagine him in that role. Not as a celebrity, not as an idol. But simply as someone who wants to make another person feel happy. Someone who would probably overbuy gifts. Not because he has to. But because he can't decide which joy matters more. That kind of generosity isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just exists. And maybe that's why this small Christmas moment stayed with fans longer than expected. Because it didn't feel curated. It didn't feel performative. It felt real. A quiet reminder that behind everything else, there is someone who gives with care, patience, and sincerity. And sometimes, that tells you more about a person than any headline ever could. What makes this moment linger isn't just generosity. It's restraint. Because Taehyung never explains himself. He never turns these moments into statements. There's no justification, no caption trying to guide how people should feel. And yet, people feel it anyway. That silence is powerful. It leaves space for interpretation. Space where fans begin to connect dots on their own. The more you think about it, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't about Christmas tradition. It was about instinct. An instinct to care. To nurture. To give more than necessary, simply because it feels right. That's why the imagination keeps drifting forward in time. If this is how he treats a simple seasonal gift, what happens on an ordinary day? What happens when there's no holiday excuse? It's easy to picture Taehyung as someone who remembers small preferences. Favorite colors, favorite characters, tiny details others forget. Someone who listens closely, even when nothing important seems to be said. Because that's always been his pattern. He absorbs moments quietly. He processes emotions slowly. And when he acts, it's intentional. That's the kind of person who doesn't just buy gifts. He creates memories. And memories don't come from price tags. They come from attention. From time spent choosing. From imagining another person's reaction before it even happens. That's why fans didn't just smile. They softened. Because this felt like a glimpse into a future version of Taehyung that doesn't need to be announced. A version shaped by warmth, patience, and emotional presence. Someone who would probably laugh and say, "I bought too much again." But never regret it. Someone who would believe that happiness is something you can always add more of. Never something you need to limit. And maybe that's the most telling part of all. Taehyung doesn't give as if generosity is finite. He gives as if there's always room for one more moment of joy. That mindset doesn't fade with age. It deepens. So when people ask whether he would buy even more gifts if he had children, the answer almost feels unnecessary. Because the evidence is already there. Quiet, subtle, and unmistakable. Not in words. Not in promises. But in action. And sometimes, those are the truths that stay with us the longest. And that's why moments like this never feel accidental. They feel consistent. Because this is the same Taehyung who notices silence, who understands emotion without it being spoken, who gives without waiting for a reaction in return. It's a softness that doesn't fade. Only grows stronger with time. And perhaps that's what stays with people the most. The feeling that his kindness isn't situational. It's simply who he is, even when no one is supposed to be watching. And before we end this video, take a moment to reflect on what this small but meaningful moment tells us about Taehyung. Sometimes the quietest gestures leave the deepest impressions. If this story touched you, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Taehyung Fans, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next exclusive story. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again in the next video.